The letter arrived at exactly 9:17 on a bright Monday morning. Elias Mercer stood in the doorway of his small garage, grease on his hands and sunlight pouring across the concrete floor, when he opened the envelope that would change everything. By the time he reached the last line, his hands were trembling. His lease had been terminated. 21 days. That was all he had. 21 days to clear out the garage he had spent 12 years building. 21 days to tell his loyal customers he was gone. 21 days to explain to his 10-year-old daughter why the place that paid for their food, their home, and their future would soon be nothing more than an empty building. And the worst part? The decision had come directly from the powerful CEO who had recently purchased the entire industrial district. Before we begin, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and hard work should never be forgotten, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Beyond Single Dad. Your support helps bring more inspiring stories like this to life. The garage sat on the edge of town beneath a faded blue sign that read, Mercer Auto Restoration. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't modern. But it was honest. Every bolt tightened, every engine rebuilt, every customer greeted by name. Elias had poured his heart into that place ever since losing his wife, Marissa, 7 years earlier. After her passing, life became a daily battle. By day, he repaired cars. By night, he helped his daughter, Rowan, with homework, cooked dinner, and somehow found the strength to keep going. There were months when he barely slept. Months when every bill felt impossible. Months when grief sat on his chest like a weight he could never remove. But through it all, the garage survived. Until now. The new owner of the district was Victoria Hale, CEO of Hale Manufacturing, a company worth hundreds of millions. Her factory supplied automotive components across the country, and she had recently announced plans to redevelop the area into a large corporate complex. Small businesses stood in the way. And small businesses were being erased. Elias wasn't the first. He probably wouldn't be the last. When he read the termination notice, anger wasn't the first emotion he felt. It was fear. Fear for Rowan. Fear of starting over. Fear that 12 years of sacrifice could disappear with a signature. The following days became a blur of phone calls, paperwork, and desperate attempts to find another location. Every property he visited was either too expensive or already occupied. Meanwhile, customers continued arriving. Many had heard the news. Many offered sympathy. Some even cried. The garage had become more than a business. It had become a community landmark. On the 10th day, Elias stayed late after closing. The setting sun painted the workshop gold while Rowan sat nearby doing homework. Looking around the room, he noticed something he had never fully appreciated before. Photographs. Hundreds of them. Pictures covering an entire wall. Families standing beside restored cars. Veterans reunited with treasured vehicles. Grandparents smiling next to classic automobiles they thought were lost forever. Every photo represented a life touched by his work. That night, Rowan quietly asked him a question. What if this wasn't the end? The words stayed with him. The next morning, Elias made a decision. Instead of spending his final days mourning, he would spend them working harder than ever. He began documenting restoration projects online. Customers shared his videos. Former clients posted stories about his kindness. Local newspapers picked up the story. Then regional media. Then national media. People weren't just talking about a garage. They were talking about a father who refused to quit. A man who had spent years helping others while asking for nothing in return. Within days, millions of people had seen his story. What nobody knew was that among those viewers were investors. One investor in particular became fascinated. His name was Arthur Vance, a retired entrepreneur known for purchasing struggling businesses and rebuilding them. After watching several interviews, Arthur drove 3 hours to visit the garage himself. He spent nearly an entire afternoon observing. Watching customers. Watching Elias work. Watching Rowan greet visitors. And what he saw wasn't a failing business. It was leadership. It was loyalty. It was trust. 3 days later, Arthur requested access to Hale Manufacturing's public financial reports. What he discovered shocked him. Victoria Hale's company appeared successful from the outside, but aggressive expansion had left the corporation dangerously exposed. Debt was mounting. Production delays were increasing. Investor confidence was slipping. The company looked strong. Underneath, it was cracking. Arthur quietly assembled a group of investors. What began as curiosity quickly became opportunity. Then came day 21. The final day of the lease. Employees helped pack equipment. Customers stopped by to say goodbye. Many struggled to hold back tears. Elias locked the office one final time and looked across the garage floor. Every stain on the concrete carried a memory. Every tool represented years of effort. Every corner held a piece of his life. Then his phone rang. The call lasted less than 5 minutes. When it ended, he simply stood there in stunned silence. Arthur Vance had completed a stunning acquisition. Not of the garage. Of Hale Manufacturing itself. The struggling shareholders had accepted the offer. Victoria Hale no longer controlled the company. The woman who had signed the lease termination was no longer CEO. And Arthur's first official decision shocked everyone. He cancelled every pending eviction. He preserved every small business. He offered Elias something even more unbelievable. A partnership. Arthur believed Mercer Auto Restoration represented everything modern corporations had forgotten about people. Within months, the garage expanded into a nationally recognized restoration center. New jobs were created. Apprentices were hired. Families found work. Most importantly, Rowan never had to watch her father's dream disappear. As for Victoria Hale, the experience changed her as well. For the first time in years, she saw the human cost hidden behind corporate decisions. She later admitted that numbers on spreadsheets had made her forget the faces behind them. Sometimes losing power teaches lessons success never can. 1 year later, a celebration was held outside the newly expanded facility. Families filled the parking lot. Classic cars lined the street. Children laughed under bright afternoon sunshine. And hanging above the entrance was a new sign. Mercer Restoration and Manufacturing. Elias stood beside Rowan, looking at the crowd that had helped carry them through their darkest days. He realized something important. The garage had never really been about cars. It had always been about hope. About refusing to surrender when life became unfair. About choosing integrity when bitterness would have been easier. And about believing that even when one door closes, another can open wider than you ever imagined. Special request, comment below with the words, "Never give up," if you believe perseverance can overcome even the toughest setbacks. And if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and leave a comment. Your engagement helps more people discover stories of courage, resilience, and second chances. Because sometimes the people who seem powerless today are quietly building the strength to change everything tomorrow. And sometimes, the greatest comeback begins exactly when the world thinks your story is over.